Living Single was much more than a standard sitcom. It ranked among those uncommon programs that felt authentic, amusing, warm, and filled with personalities audiences genuinely wanted to know. The cast shared remarkable chemistry. The characters came across as sincere, and for numerous fans, the series grew into something beyond simple comedy. It felt recognizable, reassuring, and considerably forward-thinking. Yet looking back today, there is still more to notice. Hidden behind the humor, the fashion, and the friendships that distinguish the show, there existed stories many viewers never completely understood. Taking a closer look at the Living Single cast, the connection they had, and the reality behind the legacy they created reveals a deeper, more layered narrative. Living Single first aired on August 22, 1993, and from the very start, it felt unlike other shows. Yvette Denise Lee Bowser created the series, which followed 6 friends in New York City managing work, romance, aspirations, and daily existence. The plot centered on a Brooklyn brownstone in Prospect Heights, where 2 apartments became the heart of everything. One home held Khadijah James, her cousin Sinclair, and their friend Regine. The other held Kyle Barker and Overton Wakefield Jones. Maxine Shaw was also constantly present, entering the group with her sharp remarks and strong personality. The jokes worked, the friendships seemed genuine, and the cast had a beat that quickly pulled viewers in. Khadijah was ambitious and steady as the editor and publisher of Flavor magazine. Sinclair was kind and optimistic. Regine loved appearance, rumors, and the pursuit of a wealthy man. Max was tough, clever, and never hesitant to express her opinions. Kyle was smooth and fast with a response, while Overton offered warmth and a gentle nature. That combination gave the show equilibrium, delivering romance, competition, ambition, and ease all together. Living Single created a world that felt enjoyable and truthful, though the story behind that world began even earlier. Before the title Living Single was locked in, Fox had already started assembling elements. Queen Latifah and Kim Coles both had development agreements with the network. In March 1993, Fox announced a sitcom called My Girls about roommates living in New York City. Shortly before the show premiered, the name changed to Living Single. Yvette Lee Bowser created the series with a distinct mission. She wanted to build a show based on herself and her friends, and she aimed to transform how young black people were depicted on television. Her objective was to present black characters positively and shift away from old stereotypes. She once explained that all 4 women on the show reflected pieces of her own personality. She said, "I've been as ditzy as Sinclair, as superficial as Regine, as bitter as Max, and as focused and driven as Khadijah." That explains why the women felt so real. They were not written as shallow sitcom types. They had faults, motivation, self-doubt, humor, and emotion. Khadijah was even shaped around Queen Latifah herself. Just as Khadijah ran Flavor, Latifah was also an entrepreneur who had started her own hip-hop record label. The show held onto that sense of reality in other ways too. Queen Latifah's actual mother and Kim Fields' actual mother were cast to play their on-screen mothers. Even the brownstone set came from Family Matters, but once Living Single stepped inside that space, it made the area feel entirely new. Soon, the cast within it became just as significant as the setting. A major reason Living Single connected so powerfully was the cast. Queen Latifah played Khadijah James, the Howard University graduate who ran Flavor and served as the group's anchor. Kim Coles played Sinclair James Jones, Khadijah's kind cousin and roommate who worked as a receptionist at Flavor and dreamed of acting. That role had first been meant for Mooney Love, but she could not accept it, and Kim Coles made Sinclair unforgettable. Kim Fields played Regine Hunter, the stylish roommate who loved luxury, gossip, and seeking a glamorous life. Erica Alexander played Maxine Shaw, the determined attorney and Khadijah's best friend from Howard. T.C. Carson played Kyle Barker, the stockbroker whose verbal fights with Max hid their attraction. John Henton played Overton, the handyman with a big heart and deep affection for Sinclair. Later, Mel Jackson joined as Tripp, an aspiring songwriter who moved in during the final season. Around them was a strong recurring cast including Cress Williams as Scooter, Don Franklin as Dexter Knight, Isaiah Washington as Dr. Charles Roberts, and Heavy D as Regine's boyfriend Daryl. What truly made all of this succeed was the chemistry. The 6 main actors felt natural together. Their arguments never felt shallow, their jokes never felt forced, and their care for each other came through even during chaos. Kyle and Max sparked every time they exchanged words. Overton and Sinclair brought sweetness. Khadijah held the group together when they spun out. Regine added vanity and trouble in the best sitcom manner. Fans did not watch only for laughs. They watched because the cast felt like a real social circle. As the seasons continued, those relationships delivered some of the show's biggest dramatic turns. As Living Single moved forward, the friendships stayed central, but the personal stories kept raising the stakes. Khadijah always tried to make Flavor successful while also seeking love. By the series finale, she found it in Scooter, her childhood friend. Sinclair and Overton became one of the show's sweetest couples. What began as fondness slowly grew into a genuine relationship, and by the end of season 4 they married. In season 5 they moved in together, which changed the group dynamic once more. Regine's life shifted too. She started as a boutique buyer with big dreams and expensive taste, always hoping to find a wealthy man. Later she worked as a costume assistant on the soap opera Palo Alto. After that show was canceled, she became a wedding planner and eventually moved out to live with her fiancé Dexter Knight. Max and Kyle had one of the most discussed dynamics on the series. Their constant clashing made it obvious that real attraction lay underneath. They eventually began a sexual relationship, but when Kyle decided to take a job in London and asked Max to come with him, she refused. That choice deeply affected her. Later, after defending a man who claimed to be the second coming of Jesus, Max began to take her life more seriously. She decided she wanted to become a mother and pursued pregnancy through IVF. Without realizing it, she chose Kyle's sperm donation based on the qualities she wanted for her child. Kyle returned in the series finale, and the two reconciled. Living Single did not just find an audience. It became one of the most popular African-American sitcoms of its era. In its first season, it regularly earned better ratings than Martin, which aired right before it on Thursday nights, and it became the 4th highest-rated show on Fox out of the network's 12 current series. Across all 5 seasons, it remained among the top 5 in African-American ratings. Viewers connected because the characters felt familiar and real. Yvette Lee Bowser said fans often told her that the characters reminded them of themselves, their friends, or their relatives. As she put it, they all know someone like one of the characters. The show also stood out because it presented successful black characters in a way that felt funny, polished, and grounded. Khadijah was a business owner, Max was an attorney, and Kyle was a stockbroker. That type of representation mattered and helped the show mean more than just laughs. But as Living Single grew more important, pressure around it grew too. Some of the biggest battles happened off-screen. Yvette Lee Bowser later revealed that network executives once tried to remove Maxine Shaw because they were uncomfortable with her strong personality. Bowser refused. She saw herself in Max and would not give in. She fought hard enough to keep the character, though Max ended up living across the street instead of inside the women's apartment. That was an early sign of how much the team had to fight to protect the show's voice. Authenticity mattered to them, and they did not want that taken away. T.C. Carson later spoke openly about those struggles. He said the cast often felt they were getting less than they deserved and were not receiving proper respect. He became a spokesperson when problems came up, but he also made clear that these concerns were shared by the whole cast. In his words, they were 5 grown people, and any issue raised was a group decision. One major concern was how the 2 male leads were being written. Carson said they told producers, "You cannot put 2 buffoonish black men against 4 strong black women. You have to think about it differently." He knew the role meant more than just having a job. He said, "I was happy I had a job, but I understood the importance of the job I had. I understood the importance of what these characters meant to my community." By the later seasons, those tensions were no longer something the cast could keep behind the scenes as cracks began to show. By the later seasons, the strain was harder to hide. T.C. Carson said he was fired after season 4, and what hurt him most was not only that it happened, but how it happened. He said his lawyer called him almost 2 minutes after a key episode aired to tell him he would not return. Carson believed the network saw him as a problem because he had become the voice speaking up about creative issues and respect for the cast. Erica Alexander later made clear how much that loss hurt. She said she did not even know how to be Max without him, and described it as feeling like someone had ripped out her soul, and then told her to keep going. Kim Coles and Alexander both supported Carson publicly, showing that his exit was not seen as a private issue. To them, it was part of a bigger pattern. Around the same time, fans noticed that Sinclair began disappearing from episodes in season 5. There was no strong explanation on screen, which made the change stand out even more. Because Sinclair was such a central part of the group, her reduced presence raised questions immediately. Rumors grew, but no clear public answer ever settled everything. That only added to the feeling that the show was becoming unstable behind the scenes. Reports also said tensions worsened when a new Fox executive came in during season 5. There was pressure to soften storylines and reshape the show for a broader audience. The cast and writers pushed back because they felt those changes would dilute what made the series honest. One conflict centered on what was described as an infamous scene that executives wanted rewritten. The creative team resisted because they believed changing it would hurt the show's integrity. Not long after those fights, Fox chose not to renew the series. The ending was not framed as just a simple ratings issue. For many involved, it reflected television politics, control, and the painful question of whose stories were truly valued. Part of why the show lasted was that each cast member brought something very personal into the role. T.C. Carson said he wanted Kyle to show commitment to his people and his culture. He felt television had not really shown a black man in that kind of Wall Street position with that kind of presence. He built Kyle from people in his own life, including his father and some professional men he knew. Erica Alexander also saw strong roots inside Maxine Shaw. She said when she looks at Max, she sees powerful women like Whoopi Goldberg and Cicely Tyson along with the strong women she grew up around. For her, Max mattered because she was a young, dark-skinned black woman with a career who did not apologize for being strong, smart, or sexual. John Henton said people laughed at Overton, but he believed Overton was the smartest guy on the show. He said Overton had old-school wisdom and always knew what was going on, even if he spoke in a country way. And for Henton, Overton's love for Sinclair was simple and clear. That was his woman, he said, and winning her heart was his goal. Kim Coles said Sinclair gave her room to embrace being awkward, different, and a little weird. She called herself an awkward black girl, and said Sinclair helped other girls feel okay being quirky too. Those details mattered because viewers did not just laugh at these characters. They saw themselves in them. Coles said fans often come up to her and say, "You're part of my childhood," or tell her Sinclair was their favorite. Viewers thanked the cast for showing such a positive view of young black people. That love meant the show was doing exactly what Bowser had hoped. But even with that success, trouble was slowly building where fans could not see it. Even after the series ended, the story of living single did not stop. The cast kept talking, reflecting, and uncovering things fans had never fully known. In 2025, Kim Coles and Erica Alexander launched the Reliving Single podcast, where they began rewatching the show together and sharing behind-the-scenes stories. Coles said doing it felt like opening a time capsule packed with love, laughter, and a little extra lip gloss. Alexander said the podcast includes things that they are revealing to each other that they did not know at the time, along with tears, joy, and all the things. Even now, they are still learning new parts of the story themselves. Coles also said she would say yes to a reboot because the cast still loves each other, and there is a beautiful chemistry that will never die. That chemistry is part of why the show still holds up for fans watching on streaming and clips online. Bowser said there were no public plans for a 30th anniversary event because of strikes, but the love around the show had not faded. Fans were still posting clips, quoting lines, and keeping those characters alive online. Still, Coles said she had not spent years searching for old episodes, but every time she caught one, she felt grateful. She joked that sometimes the old residual checks were the clue that the show was still airing somewhere, and later laughed when Hulu brought another check. More than that, she said the show still feels delightful when she sees it now. The same is true for the cast's lives after the show. The group went in different directions, but they kept building. Queen Latifah became a major actress and producer. Kim Fields kept working as an actress and director. Kim Coles became an author and motivational speaker. Erica Alexander built a media company and became an activist. T.C. Carson moved into voice work and jazz. John Henton survived a terrible car accident and returned to stand-up. So, the real story of Living Single is not just that it was loved. It is that the cast carried its strength long after the cameras stopped. Do you think Living Single still does not get the credit it truly deserves? And if so, why? And if the cast ever came back for a reboot, would you want to see it with the full original group? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And do not forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history.